notice before the day of divine judgment against their dishonor, their evil, and their incompetence, they remain stubbornly resolute to the end. Thus, as all of heaven and those who read these 144 truths bear witness, so it shall be that those who have ruled this world for 1,000 years upon lies, upon fear and malice, shall be torn from their palaces. Commencing from the day of divine judgment, there shall be a weeping and grinding of teeth, the likes of which has never before been seen, upon the unleashing of the greatest army of spiritual force, being angels and demons united against these imposter families and false elite. Until everyone who has openly defied the will of heaven and earth has been held to account, the forces unleashed upon this day will not rest. The plans of the elite for global destruction shall fail. Their plans to stay in power shall fail. Their plea for mercy in all they have done shall fail. And they shall be bound in accordance with their iniquity and dishonor to all nature of spiritual force. Their agreement to have their souls taken from their body shall be fulfilled. And thus their souls shall be taken when they sleep, when they eat, when they walk. And thus their souls shall be taken when they bathe, when they drive or fly, or when they go outside. And thus there shall be no bunker deep enough to hide, no mountain layer high enough, no place safe enough. Nor shall the continued spilling of blood ward off the inevitable. The hounds of heaven and hell united shall hunt each and every one of them down, salvaging their souls and disposing of the flesh. And they shall be hounded every moment of every day until their kind is no more. And a promise then shall be fulfilled when the evil and wicked have been swept from this earth and the rule of law restored. And as it is written, so it shall be. Well, many of those words and many of those sentiments, of course, are not ours, mine, or anyone's. You will find those words in Scripture, and you will find those words in cultures all over the world. And nor is UCADIA holding a monopoly on the awareness and change. Indeed, many, many people are waking up. Many people are looking for change. But as change and as we wake up, there are also moments of history. And part of history is that history is served lawfully. One of the primary goals of UCADIA, one might argue in some sense is the primary goal of UCADIA, is to complete the restored foundation of the restored law, to untangle the lies, to be able to prepare and demonstrate that there is clear maxims and foundation of law, there are clear codes and form of law, so that no longer we'll have the trickery that we see with mortgages, no longer we'll have the trickery we see with courts, no longer we'll have the trickery where people can lie, cheat and steal and take from us, and that we remain perpetual slaves. And part of that lawful process is this ritus virum, and ensuring that we can get this promoted and get this out to as many people as possible. This is where UCADIA, this is where history needs your help. Now, as I said, I'm not asking for anyone to break a bylaw. We're not asking one to put themselves in jeopardy. I'm not asking people to shed blood. But if you can get a copy of ritus virum, is that something you can share with others? If you can get a copy of ritus virum, is this something where you can provide highlights through on a YouTube. If you can get copies of Ritus Verum, is this something you're prepared to post in your local county, council, shire? Is this something you're prepared to give notice of? I hope you are. I hope you can. Because that ultimately is what this moment of history is. If for nothing else, in the honor of your own family and history. If you were brought up in a family, even if you're Catholic, but if you were brought up in a non-Catholic, if you were brought up in a Protestant or Lutheran or Baptist or Evangelical or Orthodox, or if you believe in liberty and freedom and the true meaning of what protest is against tyranny, then at least for the memory of Martin Luther, see that something that hopefully resembles what he intended, in fact, what he did to change the world, is once again brought to life on the very day that he did his protest. So I hope you can help. It's entirely in your hands. And we will continue to move forward on the canons. We have some fantastic research, some fantastic insights that continue with the canons of law, the 22 books of law. And we will finish the restoration of law. The law being the 11 covenants based on divine law that then underpin and support the 22 books of canon law. The 11 give us then the 22. The 1 becomes the 2. And then with the 1 and the 2, we can then produce the 33 codes of law, the procedures and forms to support a fair and equitable society, a sustainable model of society, where we can actually fix things. We can fix education. We can fix health. We can fix transport. We can fix financials. We can fix employment. We can fix industry. We can fix the environment. All these issues that are important for people can be fixed because the law and structure is sound, because people can't go and steal and corrupt our world. So 66 elements come with the living law. 66 elements come to restore the law. And that is the miracle. And the Ritus Verum is part of that miracle. I promise you the living law will come. The living law will be finished, and the living law will be free. It won't be claimed by any man, any flesh. It cannot be. It will be free of any claim and encumbrance. And it will restore what we truly believed. It will restore those other 66 books that we believe were true. It will demonstrate truly the divine. Well, I think I've pretty much spoken myself silly now, so I'm going to stop speaking now a few minutes before the end of the hour, and I look forward to the comments of those that want to make a comment or question through the chat, or would like to speak live by pressing *8 or #8 on the question there. So with that, let me wrap up and say thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for listening as I shared with you the importance of this, and thank you in anticipation and hope that each and every one of you will share this important history with others. With that, I look forward to seeing your questions in the chat and also speaking to you live. I'm going to start now, and non-member has been sitting there from the beginning, and I'm going to unmute you and see what you'd like to say. So, non-member, can you hear it?
Frank,
Hi.
I had to go to a different route to get to you through my home phone. I actually was just to let you know that I heard you. I was, rep calling back. But in the native world, when a leader, as you say, world leaders, but a leader actually is the last to eat, and also make sure that his people are taken care of before he takes care of himself. And that's the old tradition. Now, what they're doing nowadays, as far as since this whole thing started, is they do just the opposite. They take the best, and they eat the best, and they do the best. But in the old times, the way it was that the leader was the last to get any kind of anything, and he was the last to work on his home. When you were moving, because we had 20-year cycles. His house was the last to be built. He lived out in the cold until it was ready. Until all his people were put in place, and then he took the worst conditions because that's the way it was. Because he's a true leader. A leader takes last, not first. Yes. So that's just a comment. How do I get to you on a normal? As far as when you say, is anybody there? What do I do? Just hit any button?
Oh, yeah. I mean, normally all you have to do, I think, star at a #8 will get you into the queue. But look, thank you for sharing that. And look, I hope these words will resonate for those around. I hope they will resonate with the importance of this moment of history, and that we can actually get this 144 truths to as many people as possible, because it will shake the system to its foundations, because it is the principles that they cannot argue against. And
okay,
it is time.
I cannot, as you know, I have no access to a computer. Actually, to tell you the truth, I officially am not allowed to be on a computer.
Yeah.
Okay? It goes back, long story. But they called me the ghost for a lot of years. I'm not on a computer, so if Ron can send me stuff, I'm good. And I will get it out to the area, and plus I will get it to the native peoples. Right. But I need a hard copy because I'm not allowed on a computer.
Well, I'll get Ron to send it to you. I'm sure he will. But you stay safe and stay well.
Honor, brother.
Okay, honor.
You be good.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And I'm just going to answer the question in the chat by Didana before we get on to the next caller. The question is, my thoughts on the Occupy movement, particularly the brutal reaction by police in Melbourne and other cities, the beginning of the end. What I'd say is that I believe that the Occupy movement, I believe that those that are participating on the ground in the Occupy movement have the right intention. And I have not seen people on the ground in this movement that are the almost semi-professional agitators that you see sometimes that hijack rallies to turn them into riots. And in fact, in some cases where there's been actual footage, particularly in Canada, actual footage of Canadian police dressing up as protesters, and this was actually famous footage, dressing up as protesters to then go and become the rioters. And of course, in Canada, nothing ever happened about that. There was no inquiry. There was no one held to account. As far as who is behind the Occupy momentum, that is a different question. And I have to say, sadly, there is some evidence that far from it being a spontaneous and far from it being an altruistic objective, that there is in fact funding from people who are well and truly part of the problem. Now, why they're doing it, I don't know. That's something that I ask you to share with me. As far as the action by the police, there is nothing that justifies that. There is nothing that justifies that. But I would say to anyone that is occupying or part of an occupying space, what they're failing to do is recognize clearly their rights and what they can do to establish their rights. The police are a private corporate militia. They no longer even pretend to be officers of the law. They don't even pretend to be officers of the law. They are merely a militia agency. And for them to get away with it is because people on the ground still don't know who they are. If they had enclosed that space and given notice that the space had been claimed and surveyed, if they had declared exactly who and what they were,